what we want to do today is provide you with some tips and some resources and some skills so that way you can up level your brand, up level the impact that your programs should be having, and up level your communications as you are communicating what it is you're trying to do and ensuring that you're aligned with your key stakeholder priorities. Hello, good morning. Happy New Year. Can you believe it? It's 2023. I am here with my colleague, Larissa, and we are hosting a super important topic right now. We're hosting a conversation on how to wow your stakeholders. You know, we wanted to turn the corner on the year and get this on your agenda, get this on your radar right now. I think a lot of you are at the beginning of your year. A lot of you are in the last month of your fiscal. It's so important that we really understand the motivations. We understand what is most important, the priorities of our stakeholders, so that way we can ultimately ensure that the programs we're creating, that the enablement that we're creating and launching is achieving and exceeding the goals that our stakeholders need in order for them to grow the business, get to profitability, and et cetera. So how to wow your stakeholders. I love it. And as always, you know, Larissa is here with me. She's going to be monitoring the feed. So please post questions in there and share with us what you're thinking. We can slow this down. We can pause and really make this be as collaborative as possible. So here we go. So the first question I want to ask everyone is, you know, how do your teams, and specifically, how does your CEO, CRO, CMO, and CFO/CIO, how do your executive stakeholders, how do they describe what you do? You know, are you the glue that ties everything together? Are you the orchestrator? Are you the revenue multiplier? Or are you the training person? Are you the boot camp person? It's an interesting question. And what we want to do today is provide you with some tips and some resources and some skills so that way you can up level your brand, up level the impact that your programs should be having, and up level your communications as you are communicating what it is you're trying to do and ensuring that you're aligned with your key stakeholder priorities. Just want to make sure that each and every one of you is set up for success in 2023. Larissa, how does that sound?
That sounds awesome.
Awesome. Anything? Do we have any questions yet? Folks are still like, oh my God, we have a webinar on Jan. Whatever.
Yeah, a question from Trip: should HR be on this for hiring and onboarding?
Right. And so, yeah, I thought about it this morning, and I thought about, do we add a chief people officer? And yeah, there needs to be close partnership with HR as well. So I think that's a good ad, Trip, and we can touch on that when we get into the CFO and the CIO component as well. So great question, great ad. I also decided to focus in this conversation on upward looking, right? Clearly, other stakeholders are reps, frontline managers, and just felt like there's a lot to cover in a 30 to 40 minute session, and didn't want to overwhelm. We could do a follow-on session, how to wow your reps, how to wow your managers, which is great. So I love it. Enablement sits in the middle of it all. When enablement's done right, when you've got a great leader, when you are running programs that are truly trying to help with the go-to-market, when you're executing the vision of your CEO, when you're executing the vision of your CRO, when you're executing the vision of your CMO, you're that connective tissue that ultimately helps organizations achieve their go-to-market priorities faster. So that's why we've got enablement here, kind of balancing us all in. Done right. When enablement is done right, this is truly how it sits. And it's not this thing that just lives under sales. It's this thing that is ubiquitous across the organization. It's culture building. So just ask yourselves, what do people say about you? What do people say about your teams? And be honest with yourselves. And them not saying anything is saying something as well. So really want to encourage you to be thoughtful about what your brand stands for inside of your companies and cultures. And so when we talk about how to wow your stakeholders, I wanted to start with this and just remind everyone that in order for us to wow our stakeholders, we're going to need to be really thoughtful about the skills and competencies that we need to have as enablement leaders, right? Yes, the way this works is we're all pretty good with the stuff on the right brain. We're good coaches. We're good content builders. We're good trainers. We can run boot camps. We'll get stuff done. We're creative. Like we're good at that. That's when we were born, a lot of us. Where we're not as good is being strategic, is being outcomes focused, is being a consensus builder, is being a super compelling communicator, and also projecting gravitas as you enter your Zoom rooms and your meetings and your QBRs and your forecast calls, right? Gravitas is that thing that is just it's how you come across, and it's got an amount of confidence. And so again, ask yourselves, how would you score yourself right now in these competencies? And when we talk to enablement leaders and when we ask questions and when we explore, I think everyone is really leaning towards and leaning into being outcomes focused and data influenced and data driven, but still we're not there yet as an industry. And this is why we do calls like this. And Larissa, just stop me anytime and just say, hey, I got a question.
I was just going to say, so first Lacey is saying story of my life. Tracy has a good question, which is she would love ideas on how to be strategic when you are the doer.
Oh my God, I love that. I think that's what today's about, because I want to enable you to wow your stakeholders. Wowing your stakeholders means you need to balance. You got to be the doer to a certain degree. Hopefully you've got a person, or you could be a team of one, but really being strategic means, especially if you're a team of one, what it means is being able to be clear and being able to negotiate priorities, being able to have prioritization conversations with those stakeholders that we talked about, CEO, CRO, CMO, being able to understand their priorities, and then being able to, with, how do I say it, in a polite way, with a smile, listen, I thought we agreed that priority A, B, C are what we're focusing on for Q1, Q2. You're now introducing something else. So got to keep things real here. I think it can't be everything. We are going to have to make some decisions. So having, Tracy, having the confidence to be able to say no, but explain why you're saying no. And it should be in the context of the strategy, the outcomes that you're trying to accomplish. Like if someone shows up to you and says, hey, listen, I know we've got all this great enablement stuff. We really want to kind of jumpstart building an onboarding program. We want to build it on, we want to revamp, we want to get ready for 24, because we think in 24, we're going to get back to hiring. It's an interesting opportunity for you to basically say, hey, wait a minute. We're trying to up level the productivity of our teams. We're trying to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of our 50 sellers. Like, let's just focus on those people. And you can negotiate without saying no in a very effective way. But it's got to be aligned with priorities, and you've got to be able to explain with outcomes. And who is it, Larissa, that said it's the story of my life?
Lacey Goodman.
Lacey, hey there. We'd love to hear more about that. All right. What else? Anything else?
Tripp's suggestion is to become a trusted advisor to other stakeholders, which is great.
I love it.
Yep.
Become a trusted advisor. And so the ultimate, I'm going to tell you, you've wowed your stakeholders when you are, I love it, Trip, a trusted advisor. And what does that mean when you are a trusted advisor? You're a go-to person. They're not going to hold a meeting and talking about enablement, talking about a go-to-market, talking about a product release, talking about a campaign, talking about a pricing strategy. Those are important meetings to have where you need to be in the room, you need to be on the call. And so if you're not on the call and you're not in the room, then that's a sign, right? So, but if you've wowed your stakeholders, and if they truly believe you're a trusted advisor, they will have you be a part of those meetings. They will listen to you. Your point of view matters, and they will create space in a meeting, whether it's a QBR or whether it's a forecast call, and they'll ask you for your opinion. So what I'm sharing with you right here is, here's how you know you've wowed your stakeholders. These sentences here. If your experience with your CRO and your CEO and your CMO or your head of sales, depending on the size of your company, if this is the type of relationship you have with them, where there's mutual trust, that there's respect, and that they're creating space for you to share your opinions, you've won them over. And by the way, you're also part of the decisions and part of the conversations before they happen, right? So I love that, Trip. Great. Great. So I'm going to keep going, Larissa. And so listen, I'm going to start with three generic, tips that are that cover all roles. And, over the next 30 minutes, I'm going to go through and give you tips to engage with CEOs, with CMOs, with CROs, with chief information officers, CFOs, and then we'll talk about the chief people officer as well. I think that's an interesting point that was brought up earlier. And so, number one, as an enablement person, if you want to wow your stakeholders, I would be thinking about sharing insights that they don't know. What does that mean? Don't just tell them, what deals are going to close this month when they can look at a Salesforce report. Maybe give them a little bit of color around why you believe these deals are going to close. Like, for example, if you got 3 big deals are going to close, you could say, listen, I think 2 out of the 3, I'm feeling really good about those reps because they've really leaned into their training. I've watched a lot of their pitches. Whatever insights you have as an enabler, being able to share insights that they don't know, right? Sharing insights around, how effective some of the frontline managers are when they're running their forecast calls, how effective managers are providing coaching to their teams, right? That's the kind of stuff that isn't necessarily going to be visible in a system. So, what are the insights that are important to your stakeholders? What I want to push you for is, tell them what they don't know. Like I'm going to give the metaphor, right? They can open up the newspaper and they can read the paper. They can read the headlines. I want you to tell them headlines that aren't in the newspaper, if that makes sense. And so that's the first thing, right? So you got to be thoughtful about the insights, and it's got to be things that they don't necessarily know. And that's one way to wow your stakeholders. Second way here is I really want you to use real examples to explain what's going on. And I learned this way back when, I used to walk into Mark Benioff's office at Salesforce, and he used to say, all right, I get a text from his EA and, hey, Mark wants to talk to you. I don't know about what. And we go in and I walk in and he goes, hey, tell me what's going on with this campaign, or tell me what's going on with this product launch. And, I would kind of tell him, and he'd stop me and he'd say, hey, can you point to a rep or point to a team or point to a region? Give me some real examples, or point to a deal where the application of this is actually working. So that way I can get the color that I wouldn't normally get. And so it goes hand in hand with the first one. However, it's use real examples to explain what's going on, I think, is an important skill that we want to have, because you've got the real examples. You should be at the pulse of what's going on as a leader, as an enablement leader. And so we want you to be super insightful, and we want you to be a great storyteller sharing those stories. And then the third one here, Larissa, then I'll pause and see if there are questions, is you got to get to the point quickly and clearly. And so, like, if you're meeting with your CEO and they're asking you how things are going, get to the point. Hey, we've generated over 3x pipeline this week since we've launched the campaign, and the central region's killing it. Boom. Wow, you got my attention. Well, what are they doing? How are they doing it? Tell me more. Right. That's a super healthy conversation versus like, yeah, we rolled out training to 100 people and we're 82% completion and, feeling really good about this. Like, you see the difference? Like, one is important data, but maybe not for an executive stakeholder like a CEO. Larissa, I see 1615 comment.
Yep.
Tell me what's going on.
So a good suggestion from John, which is to apply selling through curiosity to your stakeholders to dig in and understand the desired outcomes. Shelby has a great suggestion of using an intake form and meeting to align on priorities to understand, is it a true priority? What is success? What are the KPIs that you're trying to influence? Things like that. And then Lacey gave a little more commentary that she's getting caught up in the constant stream of taking input from others just willy-nilly, and then executing strategies and building things that sometimes don't get adopted. And that sales leaders want outcomes, but they don't engage with the strategy and don't hold their teams accountable.
Yeah, no, I can empathize. And we created an enablement strategy framework, so that way you can use it to align your leadership team, use it to document priorities, and then ultimately use it as a way to keep teams focused on the outcomes, the objectives and the outcomes that they've communicated to you are most important this quarter. So it doesn't turn into like a rotating chair of stuff, because then that's no good for anyone. I I love it. Those are all great comments. I love absolutely being curious, right? Someone says, go build onboarding. Great. So what does success look like? And full stop. Well, let them like, oh, that's a good question. What does success look like? Other question is, well, how does the onboarding program that you're asking me to build, what is similar to success, but what impact will it have on the business compared to, this add-on product that we're rolling out where we think we can get 50% of our customers to buy the add-on product. Like I'm just giving generic examples, but you need to be on top of the data. You need to be on top of the priorities. You need to know what they're thinking about so that way you can use their priorities. Like it's typical sales, right? Like, and I love it, John. John, it's beautiful. He just made me think of something. When a salesperson gets on a call with a prospect and they have a good conversation and there's mutual sharing of information at the end of the call, a good salesperson will write down, here's what I heard, here are your priorities, here are the impacts, here's the current situation. And then they'll write it down. They'll send an email and say, hey, Larissa, great meeting you. Here's what I heard. Here are the impacts. Here are the issues. And it'll be quantified, right? Fast forward 3 months. If Larissa says, I don't know if this deal is going to work right now. I don't know if we can make it happen. Whoa, Larissa, you told me back on, October 15th that, hey, your number one priority was to boost productivity of your teams and to grow the add-on sales. What's changed? Right. And so you can use their words to ask open-ended, curious questions. So that way you can be the collaborative, trusted advisor. And then they'll really appreciate you for reminding them of what's most important, because executives sometimes follow the shiny penny. As an executive, I can relate to that too. Try not to. Larissa, amazing. Great. And what else? I'm just going to say hi to Brett. Hey, man. Nice to see you. We both made it into the office today in the crazy rain of San Francisco. All right. Let's keep going. So those are 3 generic tips that I wanted to share with folks as you're thinking about how to elevate your communications and as you're thinking about ways to wow your stakeholders. Remember, share insights, use real examples, and get to the point quickly, which is good. So I did want to share one more thing here, which is the enablement profession, the sales and marketing world. Most companies go to market have been turned upside down. And what's happened is we're seeing a shift. And I wanted to share 5 big mega shifts with you so that way you have an idea of, what are some of the things that are driving your stakeholders right now, right? So first of all, because we're now living in a world where the go-to-market is aligned, where the buyer's journey is across all customer-facing roles, because a lot of companies now are thinking about how they can, lean into their install base, partner with them more closely. So you've got customer success, you've got support, you've got all these folks that have those mission-critical relationships with customers. Basically, sales enablement has effectively shifted and is now revenue enablement. Gartner called it that. And I applaud that. And I think it's the right move for us to go into that direction. Like sales enablement will always be a term, but when you're thinking about enablement, you should be thinking about all your customer facing folks, right? Everyone, partners, success, services, support, sales engineers, your SMB, your enterprise, your SDRs, your BDRs, right? So just have that kind of point of view when you're thinking about your programs in 23. And that'll help you elevate your thinking and establish even better relationships with your CRO, who is also thinking about all their different channels and their levers for growth. So that's number 1. Number 2, we all know this, and it's painful to see. There was a really big layoff yesterday at Salesforce. Capacity to efficiency. It's not okay anymore to hire at all costs. Now it's important for us to lift the efficiency of our teams. It's pretty clear happening universally across the world right now. Sales teams, a lot of teams are now thinking about it this way. And but this is a time for enablement to shine, because enablement can come in, and with programs, we can boost the effectiveness. We can get really maniacally focused on how we can get organizations to actually deliver on the promise of improving efficiency. And the days of, half of my reps maybe making their number are over. We're going to really need to strive for 80% of my reps making my number. And it's going to be hard. It's a transition. So that's number 2. Number 3, big macro level change that's happening is the shift to digital buyer engagement. Clearly, the pandemic has moved us in that direction. So if you're not being strategic about how you are enabling your teams, how you are collaborating with marketing to enable your teams with content, so that way they can engage their buyers, their prospects, their customers digitally, so that way they can provide just-in-time information and ultimately track insights, you're missing an opportunity to drive a more consistent, repeatable buyer's journey and a better buying experience. So that's the third big trend. Fourth big trend that's happening out there is the intuition-based enablement. Okay, let's do a boot camp. Okay, let's do product training. Okay, let's get everyone on a call. We'll just train them. Ain't gonna work anymore. We got 50 reps. We got 100 reps. You're gonna have to master and get clarity on their performance. You're going to have to know how much pipe do they have? What are the pipeline goals? You're going to have to know how they're doing in terms of pipeline coverage. We're going to have to know how they're doing with their stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 progression. So that way you can actually deliver programs that are going to be data influenced. If you've got a really big pipeline problem, I wouldn't spend time training people in negotiations, like that kind of stuff. A lot of folks would just throw down training for stuff that really doesn't move the needle on what's most important to leaders today. So what is the most important measure that we need to focus on right now? I'd be asking your CRO and CMO that question if you haven't already. And then finally, tool proliferation and consolidation. That's hitting everyone. And we're going to share some insights on what you can do. Ultimately, we want you to be on the front of that, rather than someone coming in like IT or your CFO, rather than someone coming in and consolidating you. We want you to build a strategy where you can say, hey, I've taken a look at my systems, I've taken a look at my technologies, and I think there's a way to streamline some of the stuff. We can reduce some expenditures. So having a point of view on your stack and taking emotion out of it and just looking at redundancy of functionality across all the different systems that you currently purchased over the last few years, super important. So you got to have a point of view on that. So let me pause. Any thoughts or feedback, Larissa, so far on these 5 big macro trends I'm seeing?
Not so far from the audience, but they're big trends and some of them are hard to digest.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot to take in when you think about everything that's going on and all of the different things that are influencing what an enablement leader has to think about. So it's a lot.
It's true. It is. And next week, we're hosting Dr. Howard Dover. We're going to interview him and we're going to have a discussion we're going to go real deep on the top trends in sales in 23. So join us for that one if you're not already on that one. So I'm going to keep going, Larissa. How's that?
Perfect.
So listen, I almost feel like I want everyone to raise their right hand and repeat after me. I, Elay Cohen, believe that enablement is a must-have, right? Enablement is a must-have. Enablement is business critical, mission critical, now more than ever. 2008, when we really pioneered enablement back at Salesforce, it was the same thing. We all believed that enablement was the ultimate go-to-market accelerator. So this is it. You're all here on this call because you believe, but now it's time to get our stakeholders to believe it as well. So enablement is a must-have. Please create the poster, memorize that, have that be, and it should, how do I say it? It should really empower you to be able to have strategic level conversations with your stakeholders. And so if we were in a room all together, I would get everyone to stand up and we would do that in a fun way. So hopefully folks appreciate that. All right, let's dive a little deeper now. Let's go look at some of the roles. So I'm going to start with CRO. And listen, CRO is synonymous. CRO is synonymous with Chief Sales Officer, is synonymous with SVP Sales. And if some of you are enabling a GM of sales or this is whoever owns quota. Let's just agree that that's who we're talking about right now. Okay. So what I want to do is give you some tips to wow your CRO. So that way you can be a true trusted advisor and you can deliver on the promise of helping grow the business faster and ensure that it's happening in a profitable way as well. Right. I think that's a big thing. So listen, couple stats. I'm not sure how this looks in your companies, but this is data that is pretty universal. 20% of sellers are creating about 80% of revenue. The amount of calls I was on this week with CEOs and CROs were when I asked the question, how are you doing with attainment? And not sales and customers, obviously prospects. And when they answer the question, they say, if they got 50 reps, they have 4 or 5 that are really carrying the number. And so, it's pretty universal. Everyone's got this big, chunky middle. And that chunky middle is what we want you to really lean into and focus in and develop programs so you can help lift them up and help move them across the performance continuum. And, according to the Salesforce data, according to Forrester data, according to Gartner data, according to a whole bunch of different sources, they all kind of circle around that really, in general, 43% of sellers are hitting quota. That's across the 15 million sellers in technology in North America. So room for improvement. And then I love this one from Exactly. And they, Exactly, they actually have the incentive comp data, right? So when they tell us that 69% of companies are making revenue goals, and those 2 data sets, by the way, are pre-summer. So I bet you they're a little worse right now. So we're going to dip Q3, Q4, Q1. We're going to rethink, reimagine our effectiveness and efficiency programs, and we're going to see these numbers really jump up next summer, is my belief. And ultimately, if you're not in tune with cycle time, ramp time, customer-facing selling time, which is an important measure, how much time are your sellers actually spending with customers on calls, do this. Open up the calendars of some of your reps and just look at the calendars right now, right? I think that's a very telling activity to do. And you as an enabler, as an enablement leader, should have a strong point of view around how busy they are right now. And that could result in maybe they don't have enough pipeline. Maybe there aren't enough meetings scheduled. So maybe you got to go back and focus on BDR, SDR enablement so you can get them more meetings. Maybe you need to roll out a program which is focused in on getting the reps to self-source pipeline to own their territory. There are a lot of companies turning the corner on the year. Their kickoffs are focused in on owning their territory planning, prospecting best practices. And so anyway, something to look at closely. So I want you to just truly understand, if you're talking to the CROs, are they focused right now on front of the funnel pipeline, or do you have enough pipeline and they want to focus on middle of funnel progression, right? A lot of times folks say we need negotiation training, but the reality is, do they have enough deals to even negotiate? So hopefully this is helpful. My friend John, I think, is on the call here. And so this is a beautiful partnership between an enablement leader and a CRO. And they've been able to dramatically improve a number of key metrics, like average selling price, like win rates, like getting an increase in the participation rate. So if you don't know John Guerrero, he's also an enabler making it happen on our list. But I wanted to highlight that it is possible when you have alignment of metrics and goals, and when you can agree on the specific programs they're going to roll out, like MedPIC training, skills-based training, messaging alignment program, and you've got top-down complete support and endorsement for what you're doing, magic will happen because everyone will comply, everyone will follow, and everyone will get a ton of benefit out of there. If you don't know Capato, check him out. If we don't know John, you should absolutely meet him and talk to him as well. And so in terms of aligning with your CRO, I'm not sure how much access you have to performance data. Hopefully you do, but what I want you to think about is, by role, you should know how many reps do we have today? Are there growth plans? What are some of the leading performance indicators for each of the roles? And what are the efficiency gaps? Right? These are questions that you as an enablement leader should have answers to. Why? Because what we want you to do is you want to be a true partner to your CRO, to your sales leader. You want to be prescriptive with the kinds of sales effectiveness programs that you believe and you recommend to them. That's how you're going to wow them. They have a feeling of what's going on, but they're not in the details, right? They're not in the details. You're in the details, but you can tell them, hey, I'm noticing that pipeline is getting stuck, or we don't have enough pipeline, or I'm noticing that we're stage 1 to stage 2 progression is really dramatically dropped. I listened to some calls and I've concluded that the reps are just struggling with first call discovery. Okay, great. Let's go fix that. Do I have your support to make that a priority? And so I want you to be really clear on the leading performance indicators that you can impact and that you can share feedback on as you're rolling out your programs with your teams. I want you to be able, when you're talking to the CRO, again, get yourself out of the details. They need summaries. They need, show me completion, participation, show me impact, show it to me by country, by team, by manager, whatever the segments are. So just get yourself organized in a way and help make the sales process come to life. Help them with the forecast. So specifically, so when those forecast calls happen, if you're doing your job and you're training your reps on, for example, Medic or MedPick or whatever the process is, then in theory, those forecast calls should be smoother. They should be richer. And if you're not in tune with the sales process, I encourage you to get there. So these are three things that this is your CRO to-do list. Share leading performance indicators around what's working, what's not working. Summarize program participation in a very elegant, strategic way, and then make sure that you're driving reinforcement on the sales process. How are we doing, Larissa?
We're doing good. As you're talking about this, there's one persona that we haven't touched on yet, and I'm curious to know how they fit into this piece of the puzzle, which is sales operations.
Oh, yeah. So when we talk about sales operations, I think the most important thing we can do with sales operations is we want to ensure that we're giving them very prescriptive requests for data, and that we are partnering with them to figure out how we can correlate the data that they have with the programs that you're running. And so connect some of those dots for them. And I think that's super, super critical. Super critical.
Great.
Super, super critical. And listen, for anyone interested, we have rolled out MedPick training. We've got a complete end-to-end MedPick library, and love to show it to you. It's turnkey. It'll get you going super fast. And our friends at Copado have used it. A ton of our customers are using it. I only bring this up if you want a home run right now, you got a kickoff coming and you want to insert, and if you're a subscriber to Medic or MedPick and you want to insert this into your kickoff as pre-work or post-work, it's good to go. And we'd love to help you make this a reality in your businesses. And so I'm going to go to the CMO because the conversation with the CMO is a little different. So I'm going to go there and we're going to continue making progress. So how to wow the CMO. Whenever I sit down with CMOs, they've got a lot of things on their mind. They're thinking brand, they're thinking pipe gen. But when you look at them and say, all right, let's talk about how I can support you, I can't tell you, they immediately get to this place where they go, I want to make sure our sellers, our teams are using the content that my team's creating. So tell me that that's happening, and tell me that my teams are not wasting their time building all these playbooks and plays and stories and testimonials. Number one. Number two, I want to know what content is working and not working. And number three, just tell me that the content is easy to find. And so these might seem a little tactical, but if you get this right, super impactful, because the insights of this data is information that is a complete black hole right now for most CMOs. And so we're encouraging you to have a strategic level conversation with the CMO about their priorities, but you really got to know, we're going to start talking about brand. We're going to start talking about content. And it's also important for us, it's also important for us to educate. What does that mean? Don't assume that our marketers, that the CMOs or VPs of product marketing, don't assume that they're experts in enablement. They're not. And they're experts in marketing. And some, by the way, are amazing at enablement, but they're leaning on you to tell them what great looks like. And so first of all, this is such an important stat. I know most of you know this. 87% of sales training is forgotten by sales reps within a month. So the idea that marketing is going to deliver some kind of training and then we're all done, we're happy, we're feeling good about ourselves, ain't going to fly. And so that expectation needs to be set with marketing. Like, hey, we're going to need a drumbeat of training. And here's some templates that we're going to use. And here's some huddles we can roll out. And we're going to need you to contribute content over a period of time, because we want to layer in the enablement over time so it really sticks. Super important. The other thing is giving them the realization that most of their sellers are not spending enough time with buyers. And so coming up with a way to really organize the content so sellers can find it and then sellers can share it with buyers super easily, super quickly is so critical. So these are stats that if your marketing folks aren't aware of them, these are a gift. I would be sharing this with them, because this will inform their content creation, their content effectiveness strategies. And here's an example, right? So Your message to a CMO is, we're going to bring your content to life. And I love this word. We're going to activate your content. We're gonna pat them on the back. We're gonna say your content is great, and we really want to bring it to life. So content activation. I hear this a lot. Companies have invested a ton in content management systems and portals and other technologies, and universally the same. Like, reps still can't find the content. Content is just sitting there in this big black hole. So how do you activate the content? That's the partnership between enablement and between marketing. You want to activate their content, and you want to ultimately measure the effectiveness. And you activate it by rolling out sales plays. You activate it by capturing stories and testimonials and even crowdsourcing some stories. And you activate it by empowering your sellers with digital sales rooms or buyer sites that you can see here. And I'm going to give this to you. I can't tell you how many times this comes up. What should be in a sales play? It's like we're building sales plays for the first time every single time. I don't know why that happens, but here's a checklist. We've got blogs on this. We've got huddles built into our platform that also has these scorecards. But like, ultimately, you want to guide marketing so they can answer these questions for you. I'm not saying enablement owns building all this content. What I'm saying is enablement owns being clear on expectations with the CMO and with product marketing. So we can be clear on, hey, we need this. So we need a video or some content around what's in it for me as a rep to sell this product. We need an ideal customer profile description. We need a solution overview, discovery questions, testimonials. We need some, how does this affect account and territory planning, right? So that's interesting. There's a relationship and overlap there as well with ops, with sales ops, because you want to ensure that your reps have clear account ownership and clear contacts that they can actually do prospecting for in a sales play. Pricing and offers need to be nailed down. You got to have clear documentation of email sequences and templates. There's a lot here, but to do this right takes work and time. And if you take a step back, you create this checklist, you create a committee, you create a work group around your sales plays, magic will happen. A lot of CROs, I was in a meeting yesterday in person, 2 days ago, actually. Yesterday was crazy rain, with a CRO and a CMO, and their top priorities for the first half of the year is to roll out use case sales plays to their teams so they can get them really focused in on the plays that they think are going to drive pipeline creation and pipeline progression in the first half of this year. So if you're not already talking about sales play activation around specific use cases or personas or specific products or campaigns, I encourage you to really kind of lean into this as well. And, we'll make all the slides available too, so that way you can have them. I'm going to pause. Anything? Larissa, any questions?
I just want to say I love this one, because everything that we're seeing as digital buying progresses, so much of the buyer's journey is happening before they talk to a rep. And marketing is putting out a lot of great content, and the rep has to just be prepared to maximize their time as much as possible once they get on the phone with a prospect or a customer, and everyone is saying, this is great stuff, because there's a lot happening here. There's a lot of disruption. And so the alignment between enablement and marketing in helping the buyer through that journey and helping the sales rep be really prepared. And you talk a lot about, the confidence and the competence of the seller. Like, that's what this gets at. And I think it's great.
No, and this is why I included it, Larissa. I appreciate you for saying that. Thank you. I think you'll have your own labels and nouns, but the essence here is create the checklist, be the thought leader as the enabler, present this to the marketing team and say, as we roll out these plays, let's work together on developing a game plan where we can get this content created. Your commitment to them will be, you'll ensure that the reps complete the training, and you'll ensure that the reps are going to be able to, you're going to ensure that the reps are going to use the content when they're actually engaging buyers, assuming you've got the right tech for it. But ultimately, your marketing, your CMO and your VP product marketing and everybody building content for you will love you so much if you are being very clear on what content is needed by when and in what structure, right? These aren't, and this isn't a 90-minute video. Ultimately, these would be a series of 1 to 2, 2 to 3 minute shorts that then can be easily digestible and consumable by your team. So it's really, really powerful, this sales play activation concept. It's not done well, and it's the ultimate in alignment. We had one of our customers last year, live person, after we helped them with their messaging alignment. This became the focus, sales play activation. And they told me, they said, listen, you know what? What's great is by getting our marketing team and sales team and ops team to kind of agree on the checklist, you're driving go-to-market alignment like never before. And that's the ultimate here, the holy grail of the value that we want to enable to deliver beyond just efficiency and effectiveness. So no, it's great. CEO, I'm going to go to the CEO now. What do CEOs care about? Well, listen, CEOs want to make sure that all your teams are communicating consistently on the key brand, that the messages, folks, are conversationally competent, and that the plays that are being run repeatedly, and that your CEO, when they're on calls or they visit with customers, whether they're doing it in person or remote, that doesn't matter who the rep is, doesn't matter who the customer success person is, they want consistency. They're spending so much money to take their idea, their vision, create something, and the thing that drives them crazy as a CEO is when folks are off brand, off message, and they're just not conversationally competent. You can see here, this is a beautiful thing. We've just rolled out pitch practice. We've got a pitch AI, which is automated, but your to-do with your CEO, and listen, you're going to have to manage this. If you're turning the corner on the year and you're not engaging and being engaged in a messaging exercise, because everyone's messaging has changed. Everyone's rolling out new messaging in Q1. Everyone is. And I just want to impress upon you as an enablement leader, I want you to be in that conversation. I want your point of view to matter, because the messaging can't just be this kind of thing that's coming from the ivory tower. It needs to be informed by what's actually happening in the field. So there's a balance, there's a negotiation. And if you can raise your hand to your CMO, your CRO, and your CEO and say, hey, listen, I think we need to revisit the messaging, and let's use kickoff as a way to kind of springboard the messaging, and let's do some pitch practice before or after certifications, whatever it is, right? It's not all about the pitch practice, but it's about being the catalyst to ensure that your teams do have, how do I say it, the right words and the right assets and the right training, and that is flowing through to every single customer conversation is so critical. Your CEOs care about culture. So, you know what? If you can capture win stories for them, or you can capture stories from your success team on customer success stories, you will wow them. So be that person that's carrying the flag and saying, is everyone on message? And be that person who's feeding crowdsourced stories back up to your CEO. You will forever. You talk about job security? Wow, your CEO, and no matter what happens, you will always, always, always be in good standing, and there won't be any risks. And you know what? Make sure that you're always highlighting top seller stories. Make sure that is part of how you're communicating to your CEO. So anyway, I hope these are some interesting to-dos for you as you're thinking about. So CFO, CIO, I'm seeing both right now, meaning I'm seeing some CFOs, they're getting into the detail of stack, and I'm seeing some CIOs owning it. I'm seeing some CFOs saying, listen, I just care about the numbers. The CIO is the one that's going to make decisions on what's above and below the line. So each company is different. Sometimes it's a COO. So the point here is there's a C-suite ops person that is responsible for financial P&L, and that also is accountable for tech consolidation. And this may or may not look like what your stack looks like now. You may have 6 to 8 different apps floating around. But my point, like I made at the beginning, is so important that you're being honest with yourself around what systems should remain and what systems are redundant. I want you to have a point of view on that. We will gladly sit down, provide you with some guidance. We can help you do an assessment to figure out, which parts of your stack are redundant. But we all know a lot of the sales enablement companies, each of them is now talking about purpose-built, all-in-one, or they're all talking about all-in-one. And some of them really have all-in-one, and some of them don't. And I just encourage you, before you make any decisions, and if you do want to have less systems, make sure that the systems that you're choosing truly, truly, truly are all-in-one. So get your hands on it, see it. Don't just believe a demo, because the last thing you want to do is turn things off that were mission critical to your reps, and then you're left like, what happened? And so the last point I'll make here on the consolidation is, if you're not pushing a tech consolidation strategy as an enablement leader with the sales tech stack in partnership, this is another partnership with your sales ops leader, rev ops leader, it could very well happen for you. And that never feels good. So I'd rather you be in control of your destiny. I'd rather you be the one that is going to define to people, here's what I think, here's what I think our 23, 24 stack should look like. I think it's some time to rationalize this, but I think there's maybe, hey, here's a company that is all in one, like a SalesHood, right? And so, but tech consolidation is real. And just make sure. I once had a manager say to me, we're going to have to reduce costs, and I'm going to need you to do it. And I said, okay, well, I've got a lot going on right now. And then I remember she said, well, it's a priority, and either you do it or I do it. If I do it for you, it's not going to feel good at all. And it's going to have a very different outcome than if you do it. I'm like, I got it. And I made it a priority that weekend, and I got it done. Larissa, I see some chats and comments.
John is saying that they have a meeting on this exact picture in just 1 hour. And I'm curious to know of the other enablement leaders on the call here, how many of you are going through similar things or think you might be soon. If you can just write in the chat, that would be great. And going back to the sales play activation, Kristen said that this framework is great to use cross-functionally and get teams on the same page, and that it's super helpful. And here we go. Aaron, we're in a niche market and a small team where the CEO already knows who are top sellers and deals, are top sellers and deals not closed. Would you suggest I shift my focus to what's working in training and other data?
I would. Well, how many total reps do you have? What's the size of your organization? And maybe you can help scale replicating success. Because if you've got 20 reps and you've got 3 or 4 that are doing well, and your CEO knows they're doing well, then yes, training, but I'd do a step before, interview them, document what they're doing well, and have that become the gold standard for future. That's like, it's going to be hard for your CEO to go interview everyone. But if you do that, and then you send your CEO, hey, you told me these are the best. I interview them. Here's what they're doing. I'm going to turn this into new hire onboard. I'm going to turn this into like a kickoff workshop. We're going to turn these plays into, trainable events that we're going to do in the first half of the year. Then you're completely aligned, right? Then there's no, good.
Yeah. And then Matt, I guess this is on tool consolidation. Matt says, key to move your own cheese if possible.
Exactly. You got it, Matt. So listen, my dear friend, Siobhan Thatcher, we talked about gravitas. I'm going to leave you with 4 tips now to elevate your communications. First, I need you. I want you to have a mindset of gravitas. And it means that you're someone to be taken seriously. When your leaders take you seriously, they're more likely to take your advice and invest and support your ideas. That's why gravitas is a key quality of a revenue enablement leader. Siobhan and I sat down and talked about what she thinks is the number 1 skill that she believes, and competency that she believes that her enable people in the industry need to have. And this was the one, far and above. So become more familiar with this word and ask yourself, are you showing up with gravitas every time you show up to an executive meeting, every time you show up to any interaction that you have with your stakeholders? Interesting question. The other piece of info I want to give you here is, here's just a small framework for storytelling. So rather than tell me all the things you're doing in training, lead with impact. And when I say storytelling, I mean, how are you telling your enablement stories to your stakeholders? So when your CMO says, how are we doing on the plays? Again, don't just kind of dig in and say, oh yeah, 80%. And no. We rolled out the plays and it's amazing. What we're seeing is pipeline is being created in the Northeast. So they've really adopted the plays more than everyone else. And let me tell you how and why that happened. And so that's ways that you can lead with impact, talk about the priorities, talk about the impacts, talk about the quantifiable benefits. And then when you're telling stories, you can get into some of the details afterwards. I could do a whole session just on enablement storytelling, bottom up enablement storytelling. This is another one that I wanted to share with everyone. If you're not doing either weekly or monthly summaries, highlights of what's working, what's not working, of your programs that you're running, where you're including summaries of the programs, the impacts that you're having, any example stories, priorities for the next month or the next quarter. I think you're missing an opportunity to stay aligned. And so for some of you, weekly might be a little much. I don't know. I believe weekly. I believe that everyone should send their manager a weekly update, but that's just me. I think you should be sending a note out weekly or monthly to execs, and that summary should be tight. So we have a blog on this as well, that when we do a recap, we'll make sure you get a link to that one. So it'll be my pleasure to do that. Folks love this template. It's a great one. It's hard. It's hard to be consistent in sending these updates, but it will pay dividends in how you wow your stakeholders, job security, and job security is the wrong word. In elevating you in the hearts and minds of your executive team, along with all your other stakeholders, your reps and managers. We're going to give each and every one of you a template. We have a template that is an enablement program plan template that is a downloadable PowerPoint asset, so that way you can document your asset, and then you can document your plan, and then you can share the plan with your stakeholders and get feedback. And it's amazing. Like 10 slides. I love it. I spent a lot of time building this. Excuse the typo right there. Objectios. I noticed it in our master template and I fixed it, and we'll get it fixed here. But it happens. We're enablers. Come on, we're going fast. So listen, as a quick recap, we're excited that you're here. Our goal is to help you wow your stakeholders. Our goal is to help you wow your CRO, CMO, CEO, also your CFO or CIO. And then we didn't really talk about the chief people officer. I can address that afterwards, but we want to help you wow them. And hopefully a lot of these tips and templates, putting yourself in their shoes, thinking about their priorities, thinking about the impacts, and being clear, concise in your communications. While it sounds very, oh yeah, of course we should do that, but we don't do it enough. And so I want to challenge each and every one of you, when you're looking at, if you haven't already done a Q4 or 22 highlights reel of your year, you should do it. If anybody on this call is interested in having me confidentially read your recap, I'll read it. I'll give you feedback. I'll tell you if it's strategic enough. I'll tell you if it's at the right altitude. But I encourage you to take the to-dos that we gave you. Go engage with your CRO on their top priorities. Go figure out how you're going to work closely with marketing so you can activate their sales plays and their content. Work with your CEO on messaging, or work with the extended messaging team to ensure that that's being rolled out successfully, and ensure that you're sharing stories along the way. And make sure that you're thoughtful about consolidation and the tech stack that you currently are using as a resource to help you scale. And listen, as always, we're available. Larissa and I are available. I'm available. You can connect with me on Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's my email. We'd love nothing more than support each and every one of you in your journeys. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining us on this webinar called How to Wow Your Stakeholders in 23. We are excited for what 23 holds. Enablement is a must-have, mission critical, business critical. Let's do this. Let's continue to elevate the profession together.